Hey everyone, I had to have this conversation with a client of mine, and she lives in England, and she decided that after following a lot of my social media posts for the last several years, that she was going to go down a rabbit hole and take a look at all of my previous predictions to see if any of them had come true or not come true. And she had an agenda. She had a bit of a hidden agenda of why she wanted to go down this rabbit hole. So I wanted to talk to Farah and share with everyone else what that agenda was, what she discovered, and what she found. And then I think she's got a couple of questions for me too. This is just going to be a short little 30-minute interview. So welcome, Farah. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks, Holly. Thanks for having me.
So what was the reason? I remember why you told me why you went down the rabbit hole to look at my previous. Most of them were on TikTok. Some of them get transferred over to YouTube as well at Askhollyhall in case anyone's looking for my tag name. That's what it is for everywhere. But what had you go down that? I know you're really well versed in politics, even more than I am. And that was part of your agenda as well. But what
Well,
was your
I've been
drive?
following you for a while. I've been a long time client, but on your social media, you've had some geopolitical videos posted and videos on what's been happening in various countries. And one of the videos I found really triggering, and I really didn't like your prediction, and it really bothered me. And I thought to myself, this kind of goes against everything that I know or I've been reading about or I've been seeing. And I just couldn't see how it could be true, it could be happening, that could be something that an event that would happen. So I decided, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through some of your old predictions to see if I could poke holes in it. Because if I could find places where you haven't gotten it right or the predictions haven't come true, that would give me a little bit more comfort to think that this particular prediction, which I didn't want to see happen, might not happen. So I started going back to your 2024 videos, is where I started. And I thought, because every few months you do some global predictions. And I started to watch those, and I found that actually you had a 95 to 98% accuracy rate. So I decided to go further back because all your videos are there, so anyone can go and have a look at them because you don't delete them. And I started looking at your 2023 predictions and beyond, and I was shocked and I was not shocked to find that it was really accurate. And I think why I wasn't shocked is on a personal one-to-one level. I've worked with you as a client and really have quite a lot of trust in what you see in your clairvoyance abilities. But this
Mhm.
is sort of on a much larger scale.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure how you could really look at birth charts of countries and things like that. So I wanted to really look in to see how accurate it is to do that.
What particular one were you looking at that triggered you?
Um, it was actually to do with, well, I am Canadian, and it was the breaking up of Canada, which really triggered me, which is really something I didn't particularly want to see. So that really bothered me.
And it's interesting because you had said you were going down rabbit holes to see if you could poke holes in it to see if maybe my prediction around Canada could be on a percentage level wrong. And what did you, because I know that eventually you found it gave you peace, actually. You found, I think I'm okay with this now. So what shifted?
So actually, it was you did a follow-up video. So you did your predictions for 2025,
Right. And it was a
which
prediction.
and there was a lot of global predictions of a really turbulent time, a lot of upheaval, a lot of changes that were going to happen, and it almost seemed fearful, which is actually not generally the vibe I get from you. But then you did a follow-up video on that about the bigger picture.
Right.
And that put it all together. And I think you sort of described it as almost like childbirth or something. It's really,
Mhm.
it can be, you go through that tunnel, but you come out into another world. And it was knowing that, yes, you go through it, but you come out the other side. And I think the other thing that also you said in that video was just about how fast things are going in this world right now. So, although difficult times may come or turbulent times may come, we're speeding through it right now. So it's not lasting long. So that kind of gave that real comfort that there were blue skies ahead as well, and where we're going as humanity. So
Where we're going is where?
as humanity, where
Yes.
we're actually headed.
Yes. And thanks to that conversation, because what happens is it's not just astrological, but I get downloads as well, especially when a news flash comes out. And I don't tend to go down rabbit holes with the news titles that I get now. I just get my impression without going down the rabbit hole. I get a download and then I share that download. But I forget that I need to share what the big picture is. Sometimes I just assume that everybody's okay with this negative news because they understand the big picture like me, and I forget that they don't. And I think I should share everything that's in my brain, not just the news flash part. And I was just doing one just now before we started on the education system and what's going to be happening because there's a huge change going on with the education system, specifically in the United States. This is some people might say you're Canadian, Holly, and you're Canadian and you're in England for the last 20 something years, or sort of different places in the world, but mostly in England. And you got a very good idea of what's going on globally politically because you do go down rabbit holes, sometimes based on fear, sometimes based on hope as well. But a lot of what's going to be nucleus is going to be the United States. And what's going to spin off of what they're doing will be what's going on in the rest of the world, including Canada, including the UK and Europe, etc. Do we like that idea? Some people know they absolutely hate the idea. But the United States has been a powerhouse country for a long, long, long. It's not like brand new, that this export, importing, educational, economic sort of power in the world. And I think now they're just, his team is pushing agendas. And I think some of them will be negative, some of them will be disruptive and hard to swallow and very uncomfortable and awakening. Some people don't want to know that some of these agendas have been manipulating us. Some people like everything the status quo exactly the way it is, and they don't want change. But at the big picture, I see that a lot of this change is necessary, and I only see good at the end of it. I don't see anything negative about any of it at all. The growing pains may be uncomfortable, more uncomfortable, some people than others, but it's still necessary in order for us to adult, so we are. Now, you had said that you're afraid of what Canada is, a dissolving of Canada. And what is that fear?
Well, I just sort of think you always, it's like, it's identity, losing the sovereignty.
Mhm.
It's always been, it's your idea, your it. But I think what also changed it was when you actually went more into the details of what you saw was not that it's no longer going to be Canada, but that it joins almost into a bigger union where there's shared resources, freedom of movement, free trade, there could be a bit more EU style. So it's sort of
Yeah.
like a North American corridor, the way you have the EU.
Yeah.
And then that kind of made rather than everyone is just getting swallowed up and now you're American, because it seemed like almost like an invasion, I think.
I don't see that we're going to lose our identity. We're still going to be Canadians. It's no different than, yeah, like I example, the EU all, have currency except for Britain. They have the same currency. You can travel from country to country freely. You don't have to have separate visas. But Germany is still great,
Yeah.
and nothing really changed in that. Not as far. I mean, I've been in Europe. I'm not European. I don't know if some people are still angry about that, you know, collective they made years ago. However, I don't, Canadians remain Canadians with the advantage of possibly having the freedom to have some of the advantages that the Americans have, less taxes, freedom to go back and forth, military, which I know Canadians don't think we need, but we do. We will need this military protection. And we always have, I believe. And maybe they'll benefit from the way we deal with healthcare. And but I don't believe we're going to become Americans. I don't believe we're going to become the 51st state. I just believe there's going to be a very, very strong connection, agreement.
Yeah.
in a lot of areas, but Canada will still be Canada. Are you, what do you think of that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I started to think about it and start to look into it. It did make more sense to benefit from being, sharing and pulling together resources and being more of a powerhouse.
I believe like I've got different ways of looking at things and I clients to look at this thinking as well. And that is we do live in a material world. And I'm not talking about material like we need houses and our cars and our laptops, etc. But it's a materialistic society that things are based on being in a material world and has been since the industrial age. But I also see the big spiritual picture, which is so separate and such a divide but necessary in order to live in this materialistic game of earth that we live in. And we have to understand that bigger, that as well, and that evolution that's really necessary for it. I can see what's going on in the material world and within governments and politics and changes within the people and the planet. But I can also look outside of it and see the bigger picture as well. And that is for us to get to a world that's a lot less materialistic and a lot less based on materialism. That doesn't mean we don't enjoy the fruits of our labor, that we don't enjoy the abundance of technology and materialistic comfort but without the agenda of harming at people, places, and things for the sake of continuing to live in this materialistic world. So
Mm.
since the industrial age, this is when it all started. I mean, it prior to that, but not as globally as it has with the average person since the industrial age. And I think we need dismantling of it. It's been short-lived when you think about it. Our education system has only been around for 150 years. Our industrial age, 150 years. Technology slowly ramping up in the last 150 years. It's been a very short period of time that our lives have changed drastically in that the speed of lightning, basically. And I think pendulum has gone way over and it's time for things that aren't really congruent to be dismantled and then rebuilt again.
So one of the questions I have for you is on one of your latest videos,
Mhm.
you sort of talked about this that needs to be dismantled, and
Yeah,
the turning point will sort of be, I think you mentioned end of 2026,
yeah,
beginning of 2027, as of now, is what you said.
yeah,
You said that can speed up or it can slow down based on us. I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit more about how you see things, so see these predictions or you get these downloads
yeah,
and you say that they can come quicker, they can come slower, or can things even change based on our consciousness, our collective consciousness?
yeah.
Yeah.
Great question. 100%. So our collective consciousness is extremely powerful. We contribute to the changes that's going on in the world. So for instance, and there's proof, there's science-based backed proof of how powerful our thoughts are. There's anyone can look it up. There's one called the magnetic field, and they have that can measure the magnetic field around the Earth and how it has changed in just prior to disasters, world disasters. Everybody knew 9/11 is one of them. And during it and after it, so it measured our energy collectively before, during it. And there's another one called the random numbers. It's a technology as well, and it does the same thing. That one is much more argued amongst science, but the measurement of the magnetic field is not. So what I'm saying is that our thoughts, our energy, it changes the energy in each and every one of us. And it's not easy to go to divert from that. I mean, I fear-based as well, and I definitely was more fear-based a year ago than I am now. Before that, I was angry, and anger is also a fear-based emotion. And the more angry we are at our politicians, at our neighbors, our government, our are people, that even if you're angry for good reasons. For instance, I don't like slave labor that's going on in Afghanistan or Bangladesh. That makes me angry. I'm contributing to that negative energy. I'm putting negative energy towards negative energy, and negative plus negative equals negative. And now how do you put a positive spin on it? A positive spin to me, everyone's going to have their own way, but a positive spin to me is a few things. I'm going to look at the big picture and go, well, maybe this is part of the process. And this awareness and awakening that everybody knows what's going on, let's say labor in Bangladesh. Well, it's been going on for 50 years, but now all of a sudden we're being aware of it. Maybe we need to make a change. Can I contribute somehow? Can I actively go over there? Can I start my own textile business? Like, can I that this awareness is necessary and start purchasing my clothes in different places and look at this as a positive thing? Or I could join a group where they're all angry too, and all of us can get angry about what's going on. Or I can go down rabbit holes and watch news after news, get really angry and share them on social media and get in arguments with people in comments. And all I'm doing is contributing to the negative energy. If I and easy to divert yourself from because we're primal and as primal animals, we want to know what we should be afraid of so that we can survive. That is our innate desire is to continue to survive and to live. But because there's so many red flags and mass manipulation, specifically in the media, to create fear. I mean, if you get 90% of the movies out there are bash 'em, bang 'em, kill 'em, fear-based movies because this is an adrenaline rush and people can become addicted to that. Therefore, they can be addicted to what's in the news as well. But the more that we go out and buy the tickets and watch these movies, the more they're going to make. It's why not? It's a material world and they're going to make money doing that. And the more the news is going to share that type of news because they make money off of it, or their money by the government, and the government's going to pull their funds if they don't continue with this news agenda. The more that we do that, the slower we're going to create progress because we're kind of going kicking and screaming, of wanting to drag your kid somewhere that they don't want to go. And if they start kicking and screaming, it just makes the whole process longer, makes it more difficult. You're going to be late and it's going to drive you crazy, and neither of you are having a good time. So we could do it that way, or we could say, okay, how can I make this work in my favor? I could follow blindly and do whatever is to be done and it's out of my control, or I can take control in a more positive way and change my circle, or I can become this big activist. Either wanna just be an activist with dangerous. We want to be an activist that shows people, points people the way that will give them answers. Like now you just give me a bunch of fear-based knowledge. Tell me, what can I do with this? Tell me what happens. Where's happily ever after at the end of it? So I don't know if that answers your question, but we
Yeah.
have to be very cognitive of our emotional energy and our fear-based energy because fear begets fear. And if I put out on social media, I got a friend, for instance, and she's a broadcaster and like literally a broadcaster, and she's putting out all of this fear-based angry that's out there. Some of it's factual, some of it I don't think is factual, but she's engaging. There's hundreds of comments after it of other people that are just as angry as she is. And I'm looking at this going, this is doing nobody any good. None of this. What are you doing? Why are you doing this?
I-
Right? That's making me angry.
Yeah.
But yeah, really navigate this in getting out of fear based anger and find our own personal solutions or global solutions, depending on how far you want to go with it. Me personally, I would rather just find my own personal solutions and just deal with my own backyard and take it from there. But some
I
people are bigger than that and they want to do more than that, and that's good too.
I think you're right. Like we have to be very cognizant of our, and as you say, because we're so inundated with it through
Mhm,
news media, but also our popular media. And you actually talked about movies and
mhm,
films these days, which I thought was really interesting because even if you look at like the superhero, you've got someone who's going to save the world and lead it into lead a new world. But along the way, if you look at all these movies, there's a huge amount of collateral damage that happens in order to get there. And I think there is a fear on a lot of people's part that during this turbulent time, during this immense shift we're going to have, there is going to be collateral damage, and nobody wants to get caught in that in there, and damage themselves. And so it's shifting that perspective from that's not how it has to be to what you're talking about, which is building your communities, becoming an active participant in your own life, and not just sort of passively at the whims of what's happening. And how do you make that change? Because that can be difficult for some people, can't it? As you said,
Yeah.
even what to do, how to start, because sometimes even getting started can be quite difficult, because it's a way of being. It's changing everything you've ever known or everything that was comfortable and trying new things.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And you're a great testimonial to that because the way that we've been working is the answer, the number one answer is know thyself. Like, know who you are. What are your weaknesses? What are your challenges? What are parts of your persona that you would like to dismantle or become a better version of you? And the more that you're aware of your own triggers, your own trauma, your own childhood issues, the more you'll witness that reaction when you go out into the world. So you'll be able to say, like, okay, this is me because I'm aware of this part of my personality that doesn't handle type of situation very well. So instead of pointing the finger at the situation or the person and going and feeling like a victim and feeling like the not that in situation, there's always a villain, right? And that the villain is out to get you. You can look at yourself and go, no, I'm not a victim to the villain. I am seeing that this is part of my personality that I think I need to check in with and sit with, which, like the work that you do with me, you're able to work in between sessions with me and text me or email me and say, "Hey, this thing just happened and what's going on? I'm not handling it very well." And we'll break it down and you'll come to a better place. We have to do that for ourselves every single day. Because if we don't, then we will go astray. We'll easily be manipulated because they can trigger us without knowing it. And sometimes the example I use is if you know that you have a weakness for sweets and junk food and you just can't say no, the stress makes you crazy. Don't go down the middle aisle when you go grocery shopping. Don't have cookies in your cupboard. If you have to remove them and not go down the aisle when you're hungry, where all the cookies and candies and chips are, then you have to remove yourself. If you're not aware of that, then you know you're going to eat that box of cookies. You're going to buy a whole bunch of junk when you're in the grocery store and hate yourself after and go, what happened? Why did this happen to me? Because you weren't
Yeah,
aware of your trigger and you didn't do what you needed to do to get a trigger. Some of us can have the trigger and still go down the aisles and not get the food
yeah,
and we'll get through it. But that doesn't make you any better than me or me any better than you. You just have to know how to handle yourself, basically.
yeah. That's right. You want to change that operating system so you're in
Yeah.
control of it rather than,
It
you're
takes time because
yeah.
it took time for us to get to that indoctrination, depending on your own circumstances.
It's And it's like an onion, you get right to the core. You've got to take the layers off.
Yeah.
You've got to, it takes time to work it right through to the core.
Yeah, and it's it. Like
Mm.
every time peel a layer off, it's sometimes it's hard though. Like I had a client email me recently and she peeled away one of those onions while she was listening to one of our previous sessions and she's shattered. Like she's feeling and she's angry with herself and it's really shaken up her whole reality of what's going on in her life. And it's a good thing. Like this is breakthrough, but it's not comfortable at all, but it's a breakthrough. And once you get through the whole of being shooken up, you're going to be at a better place. You're going to look back and go, well, that is now an old version of me. That's not me anymore. I'm not that person anymore. And that's what we want to do. We want to have 100 of those experiences throughout a lifetime. Because if you don't, then you're not evolving.
That's right. Yes. That's growth.
Yeah. So every situation is an opportunity for growth because it wouldn't be difficult. It's only difficult because you haven't grown from it.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the only reason
There's
it's
some,
difficult.
Mhm.
So
And
I
that's
think
why different, and that's why I suppose why different situations trigger people in different ways. Something that would be an
100%.
issue for me is not for someone else just because of where we are.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Because there are some things that never trigger me in a million years that trigger people all the time. And there are other things that I'm still learning. I'm still struggling through it. And I know that I could try to talk to 10 people and they wouldn't get where I'm coming from. Now, get over it, Holly. Yeah,
Mhm.
we did. We all have to go through that. I'm like, I'm having a hard time. Um, so yeah, absolutely different triggers. And that's why I think that this tribal collective, which is also a primal instinct, is for us to be tribal. And we've got these false tribes where I believe in, I'm anti-right, I'm anti-left, and now I'm a tribe, and I'm vocal about it, and I'm angry, and I want to interact with people in my tribe. So I'm going to do that on social media, or I'm going to join groups and clubs, and that's all we're going to talk about is the negativity of what we're going through as a tribe. And that is not what a tribe is all about.
That's right. We're feeling more and more fragmented in our society at the moment,
That's
and
right.
we're trying to find connection.
That's right. So our tribes will start arguing and fighting and creating war with the other tribes. And how old is that? That is the history of humans that should never, ever have. When the white man came to America and invaded the tribes, then was that a good thing? No. Then they became at war with each other. They had to defend themselves as a tribe, and the takeover was the other tribe. We're going to take over your land, where they could have
Where they
worked together. They could have been in harmony together, and most likely the native tribes would have been fine in general with that. But we seem to be perpetuating this old paradigm of no, tribes have to fight against tribes and we don't get along. That's not the way it works. But I don't believe that that is where we're going to head. We can have, you
are we
can
leading?
believe in the left and I can believe in the right and we can still get along.
Right. Do you think it will lead to greater cooperation then between
Yes,
different groups?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Once we get through finding our own way. So for instance, the education system is being dismantled in the United States with the government saying we're no longer going to contribute. Each state has to take care of their own backyard. Once every all the states to do that, like I just interviewed Richard, he's somebody who's changing the education system by pioneering his own micro school system. Once everyone starts to do that, let's say 5 years from now, it's going to be such a norm that they're going to look back at this time and not even remember it. They're just gonna get more choices for where they take their kids to
Yeah.
school and not
Yeah,
just have the one choice. Right now, there are other choices, but they're fewer and far between, and they're expensive
that's right.
choices.
Hmm.
Where now people like David Richards, and he's not the only, in my interview with him, he mentions a couple of other organizations that are doing the same thing. It's very affordable, the type of education that they're proposing. And even as a collective. Like if you and I lived in the same neighborhood and we had kids the same age and we had 10 other friends that also had that and we didn't like the education system, why aren't we putting a school together ourselves and homeschooling our kids collectively as a group so that they still have, we can in Canada they call it pod schools, but it's not popular right now. So it
Mm,
will become popular because there won't be hand-holding in it. And sometimes it has to be taken away for us to find our own way.
yeah,
So yeah, it will be more of a collective. I don't know. I could probably think of things in the past that weren't popular, and then we changed the system, and now, all I give is like the medical for like ear doctors and eye doctors, chiropractors and massage therapists and physiotherapists. They, you couldn't everywhere 20 years ago. People laughed at them, actually.
yeah.
You're not a doctor. Now
I,
everybody goes to them and most of your insurance covers it. It's just,
I don't know how it is in Canada anymore, but I know in the UK, like when you do to see a doctor, they don't necessarily just more for non-communicable diseases, like when you're like something like diabetes, heart disease, and things. When they don't just sort of prescribe medication to give you a list of choices and tell you to go and
Oh,
read
good.
about, make your decision.
Yeah.
And at first, I sort of thought, when that happening, I found it really strange because, we always think that doctors were all knowing. We didn't have any power. We didn't have agency to make decisions for ourselves. And that's changing sort of within the healthcare system. That I
Yeah.
suppose you could also say that about the education system, that there doesn't have to be a one size fits all, that, only
No.
certain what children should be learning, what the curriculum should be versus I suppose if you do these pod schools, that becomes the group of what they want to, how they teach. There might be an overall general curriculum, but how it's best to teach these particular children.
Yeah. And I said that that's what your doctors are doing. Not all doctors do that here, or even in the States, they still, prescribe and pills. But it would be nice if they said, we'd like you to change your diet. We'd like you to see a nutritionist. And maybe you can take a look at before we prescribe you a pill. And actually, my husband's doctor just did that recently for his cholesterol going up. You're going to have to change your diet. Where 10 years ago, she would have given him a pill. So she's
Yeah.
changing. And she's
Yeah.
been a doctor for like, I think, 5 years. So she's shifting that diet and nutrition can have and stress and that can something to do with it. I also the advice I would give people is fill, and I've done this with you, fill your brain at least 50 to if not 70% positive content, whether it be through books or podcasting or the people that you hang out with or the movies that you watch, but fill that with as much positive, affirmative lifestyle that you can so that you balance out the neural pathways that will gravitate towards fear. So for instance, my latest given you other ones that I in the past, but lately it's a telepathy tapes. So extremely popular and it's
Mhm.
given me a positive frame. And this is one of if you watch that, you'll see why the education system is shifting because they're going to be a part of the educational shift as well. There's so many moving pieces to where the education is, why it's shifting. It's not just because Trump has decided not to give, you know, certain funding education system. It's happening in 100 different angles. It's shifting and changing, and it has been since COVID. COVID was COVID was it completely made a shift. Even though it was shifting before that, it was COVID that made that final bend in the road that said, okay,
Yeah.
now we're going further in it. And I have had, people become, well, I've worked so hard to put my kids through school and education and university. Where are they going to be? That's an old framework that you have to work on getting yourself out of that old way of living. I've got even friends that are farmers and or no farmers, and they're terrified of what the Canadian government is doing to some of the farmers, not allowing them to grow organic foods, even to the point of, oh, if I grow organic foods in my backyard, I'm going to get taxed up, and I'm not going to be able to afford to do it.
Mhm.
No, you're not. We will find a way. What do you look at prohibition? We found a way. We
Yeah.
will how to, and it'll be better. We will a way. We have more freedom
Yes.
now to do that than we did 200 years ago.
Yeah. Well, the soul against control, doesn't it? So it always finds its way.
Yeah, I'm going to use that. You're right. Because this, what
Mhm.
is right or wrong, what is good or bad for that soul, not for everybody, just for that particular soul. It knows exactly what is. And I think in our gut, like if you're arguing with somebody in social media and comments, maybe you do have a reason to feel disturbed, but is it that person or is there something deeper that you need to take a look at? And most likely it is. What are you really afraid of? What is really scaring you? Because it's not the boogeyman in the closet.
So I've got one last question for you then, Holly,
Yeah,
on that. What is love?
that's a good one. I've come to experience what that is in the last and it's been my whole goal It's been my goalpost my whole life. I want to find unconditional love. I want to know what unconditional love is. And of course, as a teenager, I thought it was a soulmate. And in my 20s, I thought it was a soulmate. In my 30s, I realized it wasn't a soulmate. And then I was like, if it's not that, then it must be self-love, you know? And then I got older, I realized it's not really self-love either. Real love, again, I'm going to refer everybody to watch the telepathy tapes because it's in there too. And it was just an affirmation of what I already knew is absolutely nothing. Real love is when you feel nothing. So there's nothing because real love is a natural state of our being and it doesn't have a feeling. It actually is void of feeling. There's no anxiety, there's no desire. There's no, this puppy makes me feel love. This beautiful house I'm decorating makes me feel love. My new job makes me feel love. The man in my life, the woman in my life, my children make me feel love. That's not love at all. It's an expression of gratitude and appreciation and desires being fulfilled. But real love has absolutely no feeling. There's no thoughts in your head. There's just this sense of bliss and awareness that everything is love. You are love. The air is love. Like everything is love. We want to, I've had a few moments where I've felt that in meditation, lasted me a day or two or three, maybe most. And then all of my human self came back into the picture. But if you can get moments of that and there's no thing that's making you feel that way. You just are in this state of bliss. And I know you meditate every morning, so you may have had those moments in your meditative moments. How wonderful would it be if you could just go through your day feeling like that moment where you felt nothing?
That's beautiful. Yeah.
That's where we want to get to. That's when you really live in the moment. And that's when no matter what you're doing, you're still in this state of bliss. Like, oh, look at beautiful rain falling all over the grass and nourishing the grass when I was just complaining about it before we started this conversation. But no, I'm like, ah, yuck. But if I was in that state, that's how I would look at it. That's really living in the moment. Is that
Yeah.
sound utopian? I have friends that make me, blame me, have a utopian version of life. It is, but it's you can be there. And I have often say why I talk about the telepathy tapes a lot is because they're autistic children. And I have often looked at autistic children or adults when I was younger, even looking at how happy they seem and how blissful they seem, despite their so-called, disabilities. I think that's what we're supposed to be like. They just seem so happy all the time. And they are when you listen to this because they don't have the same thought patterns and anxieties and desires and expectations like we do. They're void of that. So they're able to feel the natural state of love that's already there that we're avoiding with all of these thoughts and things and stuff and, our surroundings. Does that
That does. It does.
question? Thanks. Appreciate that. Well, thanks.
Did
Thanks
you?
a lot. Are there any other questions or is that where we're gonna end,
Yeah, I don't
wrap
have
it up?
more unless you have any for me, but yeah.
No, I think I no, I would throw that back at you. What is your of love or what was it and what is it?
Yeah, I think I common when you're younger, that romantic love is what you think it is, spending your life looking for that soulmate. And well, for me, the way I look at it now is probably that we are all connected, that we really are all one humanity and part of each other. There isn't separation that we think there is.
Yeah, that's 100%. You're right. That is another version of it too. Once you have that feeling, that's how you feel so connected. The love that you're giving and the love that you're receiving is all one.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
there's no the two. So or 10 or 1,000 or a million. It's all one. So you're absolutely right. That's cool. Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank
And
you for allowing me this platform to do this.
yeah, it was great. Hey, everyone, I'd love all your comments below. What do you think? Do you agree with Farah? Do you disagree with her? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? What are your thoughts? Where are you on your path during these really challenging times? And thank you for listening. Namaste.